Hello and welcome to this session. We are continuing to look at August Wilson's play, The Piano Lesson. We are looking at Act 2, Scene 1, where Doka begins with his characteristic song, which is also a song about the railroad. As mentioned before, music plays a very intricate part in this play. It's a symbolic presence. It is something which is very integral to the history of the African American community as well. So we do understand earlier on in the play itself that Doka used to work as with the railroads, and that's something which has changed his persona forever, and he keeps referring to these in very interesting ways and integrating it into the the way he lives his life as well. Yeah, it also again this scene begins with the men in the family coming together to discuss. And we also find one of those rare moments where they all warm up to each other. They are also confiding in each other and telling things that they wouldn't dare to discuss when Bernice is around. So this male bonding, which comes across as one of the key features in this play, is also seen as something which gets subverted, with the intervention of Bernice. Bernice single-handedly changes the course of action in this play, and the way in which the men come together to discuss things and how that gets splintered at the end further accentuates the power that Bernice has as an individual, as a woman in this in splintering this consensus, so to speak. So Doka is also now admitting that he too saw Sutter's ghost, which was initially seen only as a figment of Bernice's imagination. About 3 weeks ago, I had just come back from down there. Sutter couldn't have been dead more than 3 days. He was sitting over there at the piano. I came out to go to work. He was sitting right there. He had his hand on top of his head, just like Bernice said. I believe he broke his neck when he fell in the well. I kept quiet about it. I didn't see no reason to upset Bernice. Yeah. And Doka further says, Sutter is here because of that piano. I heard him playing on it one time, and Bernice need to go on and get rid of it. Now, Doka also seems to be on Boy Willie's side, though for a different reason altogether, to get rid of Sutter's ghost. I agree with Bernice. Boy Charles ain't took it to give it back. He took it because he figured he had more right to it than Sutter did. So we find a further divided opinion over here between Doka and Whining Boy too, who also thinks that Doka is also trying to be protective about Bernice because he is the one who is there all the time with Bernice and daughter Maretta. And a Whining Boy wants to agree with Bernice because he also feels that the sacrifice of Boy Charles and the other black men will be worthless if they give up the piano. If Sutter can understand that, then that's just the way that goes. Sutter dead and in the ground, don't care where his ghost is. His attitude is quite similar to that of Boy Willie. And they are the ones who are wandering as well. They are the ones who are wandering about in a sense that nothing seems to affect them beyond a point. Bernice ain't got no money, if that's why you were trying to catch her. She was having a hard enough time trying to get by as it is. If she go ahead and marry Avery, he working every day, she go ahead and marry him. They could do all right for themselves. So we, through these snippets of conversation, we also get to know the kind of life that Bernice is leading. A very hardworking woman, which is why, even at the outset, when Willie Boy and Boy Willie and Limon, when they show up at the door at the crack of dawn, Doka is also warning them that Bernice is still in bed and she has a routine and she needs to get up and leave for work. Yeah. So here she's also presented as a woman who is trying to sort things for the family, who's trying to keep things secure for the future, who cares about her daughter, who wants to protect her from all the terrible things which had happened to their family in the past. There's also some stress about the watermelons because they couldn't sell it, and they also joke about the white folks and how they could sell the watermelons to them. So it's in this context that Boy Willie's obsession with women is also brought up, that he's all the time thinking about women and trying to interact with them. Whining Boy recalls that his daddy was the same way. I used to run around him. I know his mama too. 2 strokes back, and I would have been his daddy. So it tells us a lot about the kind of uh, flippancy with which they also have been dealing with relationships. They was fixing to name him Daniel and walk him through the lion's den. He got in a tussle with one of them white fellows, and the sheriff lit on him like white on rice. That's how the whole thing came about between me and Limon's mama. She knew me, and his daddy used to run together, and he got in jail, and she went down there and took the sheriff $100. So the history that the men in this place share, it's not just a shared history of slavery. It's not just a slave narrative in that sense. They also went to jail together. They committed crimes together. They got caught together. That's also part of this legacy, part of this history, part of something which, in a conventional sense, could never become mainstream, could never become respectable. So they all have some connection with the Parchman farm, with the prison, and we find that that also becomes a source of amusement when they are together. That also becomes something that they nostalgically refer to, not for the experience, not for the imprisonment, but for the many things that they did, or the events which took them and made them land in the prison. So this camaraderie is something which is very strange for us to understand, and even Bernice feels terribly left out of it, and she in that sense comes across as the only rational figure who is trying to do things in a safe way. And the safety, that the notion of safety that she has in her mind, and the kind of emotions that she feels about the suffering that her mother underwent, that's something which is entirely lost on these men. We realize that as well. So Whining Boy is also giving some tips to Limon about about the pickup lines, about how to pick up women. So we won't get into those details at the moment, but this is also a way in which August Wilson gets into the micro details of everyday life to give the sense of how life is lived in an ordinary sense, on a daily basis, and how these things continue to happen irrespective of the macro things which are happening at a historical level, at a familial level. So in Act 2, Scene 2, there's also this brief instance where Avery tries to propose to Bernice, confessing how he feels about Bernice, and he also thinks that I need a woman that fits in my hand, and Bernice says she isn't ready to get married. And when Avery and Bernice are having this conversation, we also get to know more about Bernice, and we realize that Avery also realizes what is holding her back, that she's still living in the past in so many ways. So now you're trying to tell me a woman can't be nothing without a man, but you're all right, huh? You can just walk out of here without me, without a woman, and still be a man. That's all right. Then ain't nobody going to ask you. Gender becomes a very significant component over here when Bernice over and again points out how their attitudes are very different, because they will not understand, they are not able to understand what women went through in this entire process. And men also are not able to understand the kind of difficulties that a woman like Bernice had to face during life, during death. And it's like the suffering which never comes to an end. Her mother suffered after her father's death, a death which was brought about by the piano. The piano is a constant reminder of 17 years of suffering and mourning and tears. And after her husband's death, who also recklessly went to the woods along with Boyville and Limon, and he gets shot, and then it's like a cycle. It's like a historical cycle repeating itself, where she finds herself mourning and almost replicating the life that Mama Ola lived, her mother lived. So Avery gets to the heart of this issue and asks, how long are you going to carry Crawley with you, Bernice? It's been over 3 years. At some point, you've got to let go and go on. It's a very practical advice that Avery is giving her. Life has got all kinds of twists and turns. That don't mean you stop living. That don't mean you cut yourself off from life. You can't go on through life carrying Crawley's ghost with you. There are many goes. We realize that the family is carrying, particularly Bernice. The ghost of Mama Ola, the ghost of Crawley, the ghost of all your ancestors. And they need to be brought back for a good cause in order to bring the play to a clear, coherent resolution. And here Avery is particularly talking about Crawley, but we know that this is true in general about Bernice's attitude towards past. So Boy Willie and the piano and Sutter's ghost. I thought I might have been seeing things, but Maratha done seen Sutter's ghost too. Maratha's scared to sleep up there now. Maybe if you bless the house, he'll go away. So Bernice isn't ready to get married to Avery, but she's seeking his help to get rid of Sutter's ghost, because now that Maratha is also affected, and this can be seen at a very symbolical level too, as Maratha is growing up, and when she's being her access to this past, which is not shared by her mother, but it's out there. And when she has more and more access to this past in direct and indirect ways, we find that, the Sutter's ghost begins to invade her life as well. And he's also tracing the stubbornness of Boy Willie as something that he inherited from Papa Charles. You can't talk to Boy Willie. He been that way all his life. Mama Ola had her hands full trying to talk to him. He don't listen to nobody. He's just like my daddy. He got his mind fixed on something and can't nobody turn from him. So like the piano, there are many things which operate as legacy, many things which have been handed down to individuals, handed down to the family, things that they cannot willfully get out of. I done told you I don't play on that piano. Ain't no need to keep talking about this choir stuff. And Avery is trying to bring back, discuss the piano, again in very useful ways, as something which could be used for the church choir. And we do see from the different perspectives from which these characters are approaching the piano, how it could be made use of. Yeah? So I got Maratha playing on it. She don't know nothing about it. Later, let her go on and be a school teacher or something. She don't have to carry all of that with her. She got a chance I didn't have. I ain't gonna burden her with that piano. While Bernice does not want to get rid of that piano, while Bernice wants to keep that as a reminder of the things which went wrong in her family, the sufferings, the sacrifice, the lives of women, which got all the more complicated because of the recklessness of men. In spite of all that, she does not want this legacy to be passed on to her daughter. She wants Maratha to have a more normal life by becoming a school teacher or something which is worthwhile, and not tied emotionally or burdened down with a legacy which does not offer her anything much. Got to pull all that behind you, Bernice. That's the same thing like Crawley. Everybody got stones in their pathway. You got to step over them or walk around them. You're picking them up and carrying them with you. All you got to do is to set them down by the side of the road. You ain't got to carry them with you. You can walk over right now and play that piano. So Avery's suggestion is also at a practical level. But using that piano to get rid of those fears, to using that piano to overcome the stigma that it has. And Avery is being asked to come over and bless the house so that the house will be free of Sutter's ghost. He's not very sure, but if you look at the way in which he is responding to it, he is bringing the oral tradition, he is bringing the African mystic tradition and combining it with the Christian tradition. He is bringing the best of these both spiritual worlds and trying to, in some sense, make a concoction out of it while he is performing the ritual, which we will also witness towards the end of the play. So we'll straight away go to the end of this play in scene 5, where Bernice and Boy Willie are having a proper conversation, perhaps for the first time, towards the end of the play. And this is also happening when Bernice is doing Maratha's hair. And Maratha's presence is very significant here. It's of much significance over here, because it's also, what is at stake over here is the future of Maratha's generation. What's at stake here is the fate of the future generation. So they're having this conversation in Maratha's presence, where Bernice just mumbles that, if you were a boy, I wouldn't be going through this while she's making her hair, while doing her hair. And Boy Willie takes great offense at that. Don't you tell that girl that. Why you want to tell her that? You ain't got nothing to do with this child. Telling her you wish she was a boy, how's that going to make her feel? Boy, will you go on and leave me alone? So they don't want to talk like siblings. There is nothing in this conversation which they can amicably carry forward, which is why the ending becomes all the more important, all the more inevitable too. So this Boy Willie uses this opportunity to again start talking about the piano. And now it's in a slightly different way altogether, that he is bringing up the piano and trying to talk about its historical significance. And remember, this piano was also stolen on the 4th of July, on the American Independence Day, and he's bringing back that reference over here. So Boy Willie is also, complaining about this to Doka. You ain't got to worry about me. I'm going to be here just as long as it takes Lemon to get back here with the truck. You ought to be talking to Bernice. Sitting up there telling Martha she wished she was a boy. What kind of thing is that to tell a child? You find that, in a very strange sense, Boy Willie is also, he has that sense to be sensitive towards what needs to be told to a child, something that one would not expect from a man like him, who has led his life pretty much in a very reckless way. And we find that he does care for the emotional needs of the child and how she would be perceiving herself, because for him, he is a man who's on his quest to this self-identity. And in that process, in this little bit of conversation that he has, he makes sure that the self-worth of the child is not damaged either. So what kind of a thing is that to tell a child? If you want to tell her something, tell her about that piano. You ain't even told her about that piano, like that's something to be ashamed of, like she's supposed to go off and hide somewhere about that piano. You ought to mark down on the calendar the day that Papa Boy Charles brought that piano into the house. You ought to mark the day down and draw a circle around it. And every year when it come up, throw a party, have a celebration. If you did that, she wouldn't have no problem in life. She would walk around here with her head held high. I'm talking about a big party. Invite everybody. Mark that day down with a special meaning. That way she know where she at in the world. You got her going out here thinking she wrong in the world, like then any part of it belong here. Let me take care of my child. When you get one of your own, then you can teach it the way you want to teach it. Bunny snaps back, but we do know that there is some sense in what Boy Willie is mentioning over here. The need to mark this date as a special day, when the day when Papa Boy Charles brought that piano home. So the way Bernice looks at it, it's a piano which was stolen, and a piano which brought suffering and just endless suffering to their family, which led to Papa Boy Charles's death. But the way Boy Willie is looking at it, it's an object, a legacy which was brought home, which needs to be talked about with great pride. Of course, he wants to sell it. He wants to buy land with that money that's there. But there's also immense pride that he feels in such ways that we further see this division between this paternal and maternal way in which the legacy is being looked at. He's also now looking at, Boy Willie continues to feel that if Papa Boy Charles had access to land, none of these things would have happened. If he had his own land, he wouldn't have felt that way. If he had something under his feet that belonged to him, he could stand up taller. That's what I'm telling about. Hell, there's land for everybody. All you got to do is figure out how you get your peace, how to get you a peace. Ain't no mystery to life. You just got to go out and meet it square on. If you got a piece of land, you'll find everything else falls right into place. You can stand right up next to the white man and talk about the price of cotton, the weather, and anything else you want to talk about. If you teach that girl that she's living at the bottom of life, she's going to grow up and hate you. He wants to change the course of history, not just for himself, but for the entire family, but for the entire community. And that is what he seeks to achieve by acquiring that land, acquiring the land that one belonged to the ancestors of the family which owned them as slaves. And Boy Willie continues to reiterate, he wasn't living at the bottom of life. Papa Boy Charles and Mama Ola wasn't living at the bottom of life. You never heard them say nothing like that. They would have taken a strap to you if they heard you say something like that. Boy Willie chooses to see their past in a certain way that it will continue to instill pride in him. And at some level, they are both very similar. they are both conscious of the past. They both know what the past brought to them, but they're quite unsure of what from this could be handed over. The way Boyvili sees it, it is the money that the piano is capable of making. That is the legacy that could be handed over. And what Bernice is saying, the Bernice looks at it, none of these memories should be passed over, should be handed down to the next generation, lest that will become a reason to further affect them emotionally, historically, and tie them to this, the bottom of the society. That's something that she is visibly scared of, tangibly scared of. She's working day in and day out to help her get out of that and help her daughter get out of that situation. So we find Avery coming in and trying to bless the house and get rid of the Sutter's ghost, but to no avail. So Boyvili tries to, in this amidst this confusion, tries to move the piano. I got to take Grace home. I told you I'll be back. Yeah, so Grace is a woman that he brings home in between all of this. Well, let him stay up there as long as he don't mess with me. Avery, go on and bless the house. You need to bless that piano. That's what you need to bless. It ain't done nothing but cause trouble. If you're going to bless anything, go on and bless that. If you're going to bless something, let him bless everything. The kitchen, the upstairs, go on and bless it all. And Boyvili continually says, there's no ghost in this house. He need to bless Bernice's head. That's what he need to bless. So he starts this ritual, which is, again, we will find a combination of the African rituals, the African mysticism, and he also uses a vocabulary which is closer to the Christian tradition. I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanliness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also I will give you. He's quoting from the Bible. Boyvili is saying, Sutter, Sutter, get your ass out of this house. Sutter, come on and get some of this water. You done drowned in the well. Come on and get some more of this water. So he's also, ridiculing this entire exercise. And at this moment, we find that Boyvili is again invoking Sutter. The sound of Sutter's ghost is heard. As Boyvili approaches the steps, he is suddenly thrown back by the unseen force, which is choking him. As he struggles, he frees himself, then dashes up the stairs. The history that he had been continually invoking to becomes more real at this point. Yeah, it was just something that he used to talk about to give him a sense of identity, to give him a sense of self-worth. Now it becomes very real in a very bodily sense too. It is something which takes his body by power, as we would find here. The past becomes something very powerful enough to conquer his body in a very, very physical and tangible sense. So Avery is continuing to bless and get rid of the ghost, and he gives up, saying, Bernice, I can't do it. It's at this point, and we're also nearing the end of this play, it's at this point that Bernice decides to take charge. Yeah, there are no more sounds heard from upstairs. Joker and Whining Boy stare at one another in stunned disbelief. It's in this moment, from somewhere old, that Bernice realizes that she must do something. She crosses to the piano. She begins to play. And this brings about a change. There is a coherent resolution over here, a practical resolution over here. When the piano is being put to use, the legacy becomes something which has to be used in some way or the other. And it's not something that will come to use after one gets rid of it. It's something that's being used while it stays within the family, while it stays within their house. She begins to play. The song is found piece by piece. It's an old urge to song that's both a commandment and a plea. With each repetition, it gains its strength. It is intended as an exorcism and a dressing for battle, a rustle of wind blowing across 2 continents. We find a lot of things coming together in this act, in this ritualistic act of playing. It's a modern equipment. It's a modern, musical instrument, which is now being used to perform something which is not quite modern, to get rid of ghosts. We also find different traditions, different ideologies, different belief systems coming together at this point when Bernice begins to use the piano, Bernice begins to play something in the piano. And her singing is also very look at what she is invoking over here. She's asking for help, yeah, and she's not using any big words over here. She's not claiming to have the power or the right to over the piano, or the any kind of power to get rid of the ghost. He's asking for help from Mama Bernice, from Mama Esther, from Papa Boy Charles, from Mama Ola. She's asking for help, yeah, and with this, just like they've been hearing the sound of the voice of Sutter, and just like they had been feeling the presence of Sutter, now they hear the sound of a train approaching, and the noise upstairs subsides. It is the boxcar where these men were burnt after the piano was brought home. Yeah. So Bernice is asking for help from all these ancestors whose history and whose lives were carved in that piano. So her belief in some sense comes true, but that this is her belief takes a tangible existence only when she is in alignment with Boy Willie in a sense that she puts the piano to use. She begins to play it. Come on, Sutter, come back, Sutter. Bernice is thanking the ancestors, the ghosts of Mama Bernice, Mama Esther, Papa Boy Charles, and Mama Ola, who are there to help them fight Sutter's ghost. Yeah, and we find a certain collective at work over here. Yeah, and it's very experiential. Yeah, it's it's all in their minds, perhaps. It's all part of their memory, but this experience, this collective experience, wins at the end of the day. A calm comes over the house. Maratha enters from Doka's room. Boy Willie enters on the stairs. He pauses a moment to watch Bernice at the piano. And this sight resolves it all for him. Like he said at the beginning too, if the piano was being put to, if it were being put to some everyday use, some practical use, he wouldn't think of selling it. And he stays true to his word, though, this wasn't something that he was expecting. Bernice continues to thank, perhaps, her ancestors. Boy Willie says, whining boy, ready to go back down home? Hey, Doka, what time the train leave? And there's no more discussion, yeah. And the moment the legacy is being put to use, yeah, it settles down everything. They are able to fight the unsavory memories from the past, and there's also peace within the family. You still got time to make it. Maratha crosses and embraces Boy Willie, and you do find the family emerging over here. The family is evolving, the family is happening over here, and the familial affection they had for each other maybe many years back before the piano came into their life, that is something that they are, it's sort of a reunion, not among the members who are still living, but a reunion with a past as well, reunion with the dead ancestors as well. So we to understand that almost 17 years was spent in this intense agony, in this suffering, because of the loss that the piano had brought about. But this is a time when they are trying to access something positive through this piano, claim something positive through this legacy. Boy Willie is also bidding adieu to Bernice. Hey Bernice, if you and Maratha don't keep playing on that piano, ain't no telling, me and Sutter both liable to be back. So on this very cheeky kind of note, he is leaving the scene too, yeah. And he is also, there's a lot of fondness over here. There's a lot of familial affection over here. And when he is threatening that he would come back if they do not play that piano anymore, he certainly does not want them to stop playing that piano. Because in this moment, in this ritual, which may come across as being very half-baked, very, very pagan, very unmodern, we find that there is a resolution that the family and the community, gets to. Yeah? So the play ends with Bernice thanking all of them, and the lights go down to black. Yeah? So we will perhaps meet again to look at some of the major themes and how this trend had radically helped in rewriting the Black history, and how this also contributed to a new kind of movement in the American 20th century American drama. So with this, we bring this discussion to an end. I thank you for your time.